So now we have a pretty nice looking UI for our admin users section. And we've also created the links to our create, edit and delete pages. In this video, we're going to look at the delete method in particular, and we're also going to be looking at pagination. So at the moment, there's only 10 users in our system. So right now, we don't actually really need pagination, but moving forwards, we are going to want to paginate our data once the system starts growing and we've got hundreds, maybe even thousands of users. So fortunately, pagination is pretty easy in Laravel. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to jump into Artist and Tinker, create a load of new users using our factory that's using Faker that we've used in previous videos, and then I'm going to set up the pagination. So over in the terminal, I'm going to do a PHP Artist and Tinker. And then inside of here, we're just going to call our user model. And we're going to be using the factory method that Laravel puts on that model for us. And we're going to say we want to give it a count of 50. And in the previous videos, we actually called make here that made the models but didn't actually save them to the database. But this time, I'm actually going to call create. This will not only make the model, but then it would also save it into the database. So I'm just going to hit enter on this. You can see there now it's listed out all the users it's created. Now back over in our browser, let's refresh this page. And you can see now we have extra data in here, and we should have 60 rows in total. So that's 10 from the seeder and the 50 that we just made in Tinker. But now you can kind of see the problem that this page has without having any pagination in it. So like I said, Laravel makes it super easy to paginate the data. So let's jump back over into our IDE and let's create the pagination. So back over in our user controller, and that's under app http controllers admin. You can see here now we're getting all the users and passing them down. The only thing we have to do is change that all call there and change it to paginate. And then we can say how many items we want to paginate. So I'm just going to paginate 10 items at a time. So that will return 10 results per page. We'll just save on this now. And then over in our view file, and that's under resources, views, admin, users, index.blade.php. If we come down below the table here, we need to print out our pagination links. So we'll just open up our Blade syntax, and then whatever variable name we gave this when we passed it down. So if we just look at our user controller, we call this users. There'll be a pagination method on that collection now. So we can say users, and the method that Laravel puts on there is called links. So this will show the pagination links on the users collection. Now let's just refresh the page, and this is going to look awful. And you can see here now we have our next and previous links. There's also these massive greater than and less than characters. And this is because by default Laravel assumes you're using Tailwind CSS. So we need to let Laravel know we're using Bootstrap and we want the Bootstrap version of the pagination. So over in our project, let's open up our app service provider, and you can find that under app providers, and it's called appserviceprovider.php. And in here, we need to let Laravel know we're going to be using the Bootstrap styling for our pagination. So up at the top of the file, we just want to call use, and we want to call illuminate. We want to call the pagination class. And then we want to use paginator. So once you've pulled that in, if you come down to the boot method, and then in here, we can just actually call that paginator. And we want to call a method on there called use bootstrap. And now because this is in the app service provider, the whole of your Laravel application is now aware you want to use the bootstrap styling whenever you're using the pagination. So let's refresh this in the browser now. I'm just going to give an F5 on this. And you can see here now we have our pagination links much more in line with the rest of our project. So let's just test this out now. So let's go to page 2. And you can see here we get users 11 through to 20. And then the same for 3, 4 and so on. And then we can use the back and forwards arrows. So that's how easy it is to set up pagination in Laravel. So the next thing we're actually going to look at is the delete method. So at the moment, when we click on delete of a user, it takes us to the delete page, but there's actually nothing there. We've not built out this functionality yet. And the functionality for this is actually pretty simple. So back over into our user controller, and that's under app, HTTP, controllers, admin, user controller. If we scroll down to the bottom of this file, we have our destroy method, and we're passing in the ID. And that's something we set up in the previous video on the delete button. So let's just test this out, and I'm going to do a die and dump on that ID. Then back in the browser, let's give this a refresh. And you can see here now we're getting the correct ID being passed in to this delete method. So all we need to do now is just destroy the user with that ID. So we can call our user model, and we want to call the destroy method, and then we can just pass the ID in here, and then that'll delete the user. So we can get rid of this die and dump. Now back over in our browser, if we give this a refresh, we won't actually see anything, but that would have deleted the user. So if we head back over to our admin users page, and we come over to page 4, we can see the user with the ID of 31 has now gone. So it would be better if we just redirected the user back to this page after they've deleted a user. So again, we can do that. We can just do a return, and we want to return a redirect. And then we can just pass in a route into this redirect of where we want to send them back to. So we can send them back to a name route, and we want to do a admin, and we want to go to the users.index page. Now let's try this out in the browser again. So I'm just coming back to page 1 here, and I'm going to delete the user with the ID of 1. So I'm just going to hit delete. And you can see now that has returned us back to our admin users page, and the user with the ID of 1 has been deleted. Okay, that's the basics of our delete method setup. Later on in the series, we're probably going to have some sort of confirmation to this. So when an admin user clicks the delete button, we might show them some kind of message or maybe even a modal, just to confirm they want to delete the user before we actually delete it in the application. And this is a good practice because we don't want the admin users deleting users by mistake if they've hit the button. Because as you can see now, if you just click that delete button, that's it, that user's gone and we can't get them back. That's the pagination and the delete method setup. In the next video, we're going to be looking at the create and edit methods. And these are going to be a little bit more complex because I'm going to be showing you how to do form validation as well. I'm also going to show you a technique how we can use the same form for the create and edit to save you copy and pasting. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and also hit the subscribe to make sure you get future updates for this video. If you're finding these videos useful, please give me a follow on Twitter and share my links to help promote this series.